Good morning. At the outset, I congratulate Begumpet Degree College for organizing this program. Special thanks are due to Principal Yadgiri sir and Venkateshwarlu for organizing this function. I'm also happy that my close friend and colleague, former colleague, Professor Ramlu is there. And I also wish a good morning to all the participants of this webinar. At the outset, I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to share my views on the topic that is theory of value. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. Audible, sir. Audible, sir. Audible.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Audible, sir.
Okay. Then, now the value, the term value is used in two senses in economic literature. The first sense is value in use. How much value the item has for a person. It differs from person to person. Suppose gulab jamun is there. A person who likes gulab jamun, he will rate it very high. But a person who is having diabetes, even if you give him gulab jamun free of cost, he says, no, it has no value for me. It is a zero price, zero value. So the value in use differs from a person to person. Suppose there is a cassette which contains the songs of M.S. Subbalakshan. A person who likes music, classical music, he says that cassette, for him the cassette has a high value. But for a person who is deaf, who can't listen to the music, the cassette has no value. Similarly, you take a good painting. A person who likes a sceneries, he says, oh, it's such a good painting. He says it's high value. But a blind person who can't see the painting, it has no value. So the value differs from person to person. A person who is illiterate, for him pen has no value. A person like a poet who wants to write a poem, it has a high value. So the value of an item differs from person to person. This is called value in use. There is another sense in which the term value is used. The second sense in which the term value is used is value in exchange. That is how much I get in by exchanging this item. Suppose a person having a kg of rice with him, by selling a kg of rice, he gets in a barter economy 2 liters of milk. So, in other words, the value 1 kg of rice is equal to 2 liters of milk in exchange. So this is called exchange value. By exchanging the item, how much we are getting in return. So in this case, 1 kg of rice is equivalent to 2 liters of milk. Now, if this exchange value is expressed in price, then expressed in monetary terms, it is called price. If this value in exchange is expressed in terms of money, it becomes price of the item. Suppose the price of 1 kg of rice is 40 rupees. That is, I am expressing the value of the item in terms of money. So the price of 1 kg of rice is 40 rupees. This is the price or value in exchange. Similarly, the milk price is 20 rupees. That's so the value of the milk per liter is 20 rupees. It is called exchange value because I am expressing in monetary terms. When the value in exchange is expressed in terms of monetary value, it becomes the price of the item. So price of item is nothing but it is value of the item in exchange when we express it terms of monetary terms like rupees or dollar or anything. It is called price. Now, one may question uh, Chaupat Raja. It was a story of Chaupat Raja. He was ruling a kingdom called Andheri Nagar. He was a king of Andheri Nagar. He was very kind. He was so kind that everybody should not suffer. Everybody should. Like him, there was a professor, a very kind-hearted professor. He never wanted anybody to fail in the exam. He always used to give 100 marks. He was a maths professor. He used to give 100 marks to everybody. He doesn't want to discriminate. All students he liked. He liked all the students, so he used to give what? A very kind-hearted professor. Like that, this Chaupat Raja was also very kind-hearted. He said nobody should suffer. Then he was also pained that coming back to our question, why the price of milk is more, rice is more, why the price of milk is less? See, again, the milk producer will suffer. The rice producer, why should he have more money? The price of all items must be same. He said, in my kingdom, price of all the items must be same. There must not be discrimination. All producers should enjoy. They should be happy. His interest is a very kind-hearted. So he was not knowing economics. So he said, all the price of items must be same. So the price of cycle must be 100 rupees. Price of scooter must be 100 rupees. The price of car must be 100 rupees. All items must be 100 rupees. The price of all items must be 100 rupees. There is no change. So soon there was in his kingdom very confusion. What is the confusion? All the consumers wanted car. Nobody wanted to buy cycle. Nobody wanted to buy scooter. Everybody wanted cars only. They wanted because everything is cycle is price is 100 rupees. Scooter price is 100 rupees. Car price is also 100 rupees. So all people wanted to buy car only. On the other hand, there are no cars in the market. There were only cycles in the market. No supplier wanted to make scooter or car. He said, why should I produce scooter or cars? Because by selling car and cycle also I will get 100 rupees. So everybody all producers were producing cycles. All consumers wanted to have car only. So this is the market. So the king was very kind-hearted. He wanted to help everybody, but in the process he made everybody to suffer. That is the thing. Very kind-hearted. So this is the thing. One thing is clear: the prices in real world cannot be same. Why price of some item is more? Why price of some item is less? This is the question which not only bothered the Chaupat Raja, even the economists also suffered. Were bothered trying to answer this question. Why price of one item is more, price of another item is less? So this question was bothering economists, and the economists struggled to answer this question. Why price of one item is more, price of another item is less? So a group of economists, let us see what was the effort made by the economists to answer this question. A group of economists started saying that the value of an item depends upon how much time it has taken to produce. How much time it has taken to produce. If it takes more time, it has more value. If it takes less time to produce, it is. Suppose they said, example, that is, suppose a potter takes to make a small pot 1 day, and to make a big pot, it takes 2 days. To make a small pot, it takes 1 day. To make a big pot, it takes 2 days. Then the value of the big pot will be double the value of the small pot, because the time taken for the making big pot is 2 days labor hours, 2 days labor time, whereas for making a small pot it takes only 1 day. So They said the value of an item depends upon how much labor has gone into making that item. Time. So it is 2 days, whereas small pot only 1 day. Therefore, the value of the big pot is double the. Their theory was called labor theory of value. So the value of item depends upon how much labor has gone into making of. Let us take another example. Suppose a chair takes 1 day for carpenter to make. Table takes 3 days to make for the carpenter to make a table. So the first group said that therefore the value of the table will be 3 times the value of the chair, because the value of the table is the embodiment of 3 days work of the carpenter, whereas chair is the embodiment of 1 day's work of the carpenter. So how much labor has gone in making the table? 3 days of work. How much time it has taken for making a chair? Only 1 day. So the value of the price of the table will be 3 times the price of the chair. This is the what group? This is called a labor theory of value. This is the first group. But there was another group of economists who did not agree with this. No, this is not the correct. The value of an item depends upon its usefulness. If something is more useful, people are ready to pay high price for it. If a value is less useful, people will not pay price for it. So, for example, they said a watchman is there. Watchman, he prefers to have a chair to sit. He doesn't want a table to sit. Table. So a bank manager may give a table to the watchman. You sit on this table. Its value is more, 3 times the value of a chair. But the watchman said, "Don't, please give me chair. That is sufficient. I can't sit on the table." So for a watchman, he prefers to have a chair instead of table. Table may have taken 3 days to make. That's all right. But for me, it's not of much use. For me, chair is more useful. So the second group of economists said that the value of item doesn't depend upon how much time it has taken to make. It depends upon how much useful it is to the consumer, user. The user requires chair and not the table. So he is ready to pay higher price for the chair. So the price of the item doesn't depend upon how much time it has taken. It depends upon how much useful it is to the user. That is called, therefore they called it as utility theory of value. How much? Utility means usefulness. So the second group of economists proposed an alternative theory which is called utility theory of value. That is, the value of the item depends upon how much useful it is to the user, consumer. So, but the first group said, no, we are not happy with your theory. We can't accept your theory. The second group said, why can't you accept? No, if your theory is correct, now what is happening? The air and water are very useful for human being to survive. Whereas gold and silver are not very useful for the human survival. But in real world, the price of gold and silver is very high compared to price of air or water. So if your theory is correct, then air and water price must be more. But and gold and silver, which are not very useful for human survival, its price must be low. But on the contrary, the price of gold and silver is high in the market, where the price of fresh air or pure water is low. How can your theory be correct? Then, second, because thank you for pointing out our loophole, but we'll make a small correction in our theory. Then they said the value of the item doesn't depend upon total utility, it depends upon the marginal utility of the item. What is the marginal utility of the item? Marginal utility of the item is the utility derived by the consumer by consuming the additional unit. If it has a value, the price will be more. Suppose you go to a person who is staying on the river bank of Ganga, and if there is a fresh water is available. If you go with a bottle with mineral water, he says, "I don't require your mineral water because I have sufficient water already. I don't require your water." But if you go with 1 tola of gold, he is ready to purchase from you. If you say, I'm ready to give 1 tola of gold for 40,000, he says, okay, please give me. Because he has very limited amount of gold. So for him, he thinks he can use this gold for the marriage of his daughter or something. So he says he is willing to buy. Why water he is not willing to buy? Because additional water has no use for him. But additional gold has a use very useful for him. So therefore, the value of the item, the price value of the item will be more if the marginal utility is high. So consumer is willing to pay higher price if he has a utility from the additional unit of consumption. When the additional unit has no value, he doesn't want to pay price. So the second group of economists made a small correction to their theory, and they said the value of item depends upon not its total utility but on the marginal utility. That is, utility derived by the consumption of the additional unit. So then they did not stop here. They attacked the first group. The first group they counter-attacked it. You said labor theory. No, labor theory is not correct. Why? Because they said a potter or a carpenter, they don't, with bare hand, they will not produce. They are using implements also. And so it's not the labor alone which is important. They are also using implements. That also must be taken into account. The first group, yes, we know it, that carpenter is using implements. Potter is also using some implements. So they said the value of item depends upon the total labor. Total labor means not only the direct labor, that is the labor put by the potter or the carpenter, but also indirect labor. What is the indirect labor? The time taken to make those implements is called indirect labor. So the first group, when we said that the value of item depends upon the labor, it means not only direct labor, but also the time taken to produce those implements used by the direct labor. So total labor consists of both direct labor and indirect labor. So these two groups of people were kept on fighting. One theory called marginal utility theory of value, the other theory is called labor theory of value. Then on the scene came a Marshall who tried to bring a compromise between these two groups. He said that both of you are correct. Why do you want to fight? Both of you are correct. Like was it there in some battle? He could have made a compromise between India and China also. But unfortunately, there was no Marshall. So here the Marshall came onto the scene. He tried to bring a compromise between these two groups of economists. One group who claimed that the value of the item depends upon the labor. Other group which say that the value of the item depends upon the marginal utility. So Marshall said that both of you are correct. Both of you are correct. So value depends upon value of or price of an item depends upon interaction between the two forces, forces of demand and forces of supply. The forces of demand is nothing but it reflects the utility of the value to the consumers, whereas forces of supply represent the cost of production. So both of them are correct. Therefore, it is to price of item depends upon not only on the labor value or on the utility, it depends upon the both utility of the item and also the labor. So it is interaction between the demand force of demand, forces of supply. But the war did not say they end here. Yes, if both are correct, who is more correct? Whether labor theory is more correct or utility theory is more correct? Then Marshall said that both of you are equally correct. What do you mean equally correct? They said, if you want to cut a piece of cloth, we use scissors. A scissor is used to cut a piece of cloth. So there are two blades to the scissor. There are two blades to the scissor. While cutting the cloth, we make use of both the blades to cut the piece of the cloth. Likewise, to determine the price, both demand forces and supply forces are equally important. It's not only demand forces alone will cut the cloth and determine the price, not only the force of supply, both the force of demand and supply are necessary to determine the price. Like to cut a piece of cloth, both upper blade and lower blade, both are equally important. So also to determine the price of an item, both demand forces and supply forces are equally important. It's not that one is more important, other is less important. With one blade, I cannot cut, which is difficult to cut a piece of cloth. We require both the piece. Like in scissor, we have two blades. Two blades are equally important. This is in nutshell what is theory of value, how the present theory of value has come about. It's not that it did not come one day's time effort. Over a struggle was took place between among the economists. It has taken about 2 centuries to come to this point. Now, I want to know from the organizer, should we stop here and ask for some questions? Or should we continue?
Sir.
Eamon, if you want some question, if some participants want to ask some question, they are welcome. Or if you want me to proceed, I can proceed. This is the point where we can stop.
Yes, Amma, ఏమైనా questions ఉన్నాయా నాన్న? Is there any questions from volunteers? Sindhu. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do you have any question, Amma, regarding past lecture?
Sir, I would like to ask whether, like, how is marginal utilization and labor utilization? How are there any formulas to calculate them?
There are formulas, but still, frankly speaking, there are no satisfactory answers. There are some answers, but it is not satisfactory. A formula which satisfies every person is not available. Most of them are satisfied. How to get marginal utility? How do you measure marginal utility? Is a question mark. So, but there are people have evolved some methods. Psychologists have evolved some methods. And some people say the price which a consumer, suppose a student is there, he may be when he is going for exam, if you ask him a pen for 30 rupees, he is willing to pay. But another person, when he is not so, I think, near my house, I get for only 20 rupees, I will buy it from there. So it's difficult to measure the marginal utility also. It differs from person to person. But there are methods how to find the utilities. But it is not very satisfactory. Everybody is not satisfied with the method. Because there are methods to measure the utility. Some like one measure, another like another measure. So there is no such thing that this is the correct measure. There are different methods. Like labor value. I told you, labor value, the present direct labor and indirect labor. How to club this direct labor and indirect labor? Suppose 3 days of direct labor and 10 days of indirect labor. We cannot club and say it is 13 days of labor. There is what is called time value concept. Again, clubbing, people are doing it, but not everybody is not satisfied with one method. Different economists have given different methods. Okay, this is my answer. I hope
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. నెక్స్ట్ ఒక అమ్మాయి పెట్టింది సార్, ఇది మ్యాక్రో మైక్రో అన్నది. ప్లీజ్ ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ అబౌట్ మైక్రో అండ్ మ్యాక్రో ఎకనామిక్స్ అని ఒక అమ్మాయి పెట్టింది సార్, మెసేజ్ పెట్టింది.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
No, in broadly, economics there is one way of classifying economics is into two groups like macroeconomics, microeconomics. This theory of value covers both in macroeconomics and microeconomics. Macroeconomics is studies about the whole economy. For example, why there is unemployment in the country is a issue discussed in macroeconomics. Why prices are increasing. Whereas microeconomics, we study about why a price of particular item is increasing, why demand for something is increasing. So the difference between macroeconomics and microeconomics is macroeconomics you study about the whole economy, whereas microeconomics you study about a particular market or particular firm, case like that. So these are only matter of convenience, but as far as today's topic, the value is covered both in macroeconomics as well as in microeconomics.
Hello, sir. Good morning, sir. సార్ నేను సత్యనారాయణ మాట్లాడుతున్నా సార్.
థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్.
సార్ ఆ గోల్డ్ ప్రైస్ గోల్డ్ జ్యువెలరీ ప్రైసెస్ ఇంక్రీజ్ అవుతుంటాయి కదా సార్, వాటికి యూటిలిటీ థియరీ లేకపోతే ఏ థియరీ అప్లై అవుతుంది సార్ వాటికి?
Because utility theory, both are interested. Utility theory is more applicable because ఇప్పుడు డైమండ్ అంత సర్వైవల్కి అంత అవసరం లేకుండా మనకు డైమండ్ అవసరం, ఇండస్ట్రీ యూజ్ ఉంది. అట్లనే గోల్డ్ కూడా యూజ్ ఉంది. ఏదైనా అమ్మాయిది పెళ్లి చేయాలంటే గోల్డ్ అవసరం, బతకడానికి అవసరం లేకుండా పెళ్లి చేయాలంటే. సో ఒక ఫర్ ఎ పర్సన్ మే హ్యావ్ లిమిటెడ్ gold with him. So even if you offer him one more tola of gold, he is willing to take it because there is a scarcity of that item. Whenever there is a scarcity of item, it has a value. If you asked about the diamond, because diamond is scarce, it has value. Whereas on the river bank of Ganga, water is plenty. It has people. If you take additional unit of water, people are not willing to pay. So the scarcity is important here. Scarcity dimension important, element of scarcity. So why diamond commands high price or why gold commands high prices is not only useful, it is also scarce in supply. The scarcity element only, because of element of scarcity, it commands high price.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
ఓకే సార్, కంటిన్యూ చేయండి సార్. ఇంకా
అంటే లెట్ మీ నో హౌ మచ్ టైమ్ ఐ షుడ్ కంటిన్యూ. అనదర్
యాజ్ వెల్ సార్, మీకు ఎంత టైం పడుతుందో చూడండి సార్. మరి
another 15 minutes, another.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
ఓకే సార్.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Then this the now second question was hello, can I
Please, sir.
continue?
Yes, sir. Please.
ఎస్ సార్,
Yeah.
ప్లీజ్ కంటిన్యూ
So,
సార్.
now this is the second inning of that second inning of that match. Now in the second inning, why? Okay, you explained that how prices are determined. We could understand. And there is a problem with economists is they make all types of assumptions, and their favorite assumption is perfect competition. Perfect competition everywhere. So they said they used to make a fun of economists. So I can make a parrot also economist. How can you make parrot economist? Yes, we can make parrot also economist. How? You teach only two words, supply and demand. If you teach two words for the parrot, and if parrot can keep on repeating supply, demand, it will become economics. It will be economist. Economist, when you listen to economics, he doesn't have a sentence without a supply or demand. If first sentence has a supply, second sentence will have the word demand. So he cannot speak a sentence without using either word supply or demand. So if you teach a parrot two words, supply and demand, it will also become economist. Like economists keep on repeating these two, supply and demand. And also now they said perfect competition. What is this perfect competition? This is a large number of buyers, large number of suppliers, And so everybody knows what is the price charged by everything. There is a perfect knowledge. Somebody says, where is the perfect competition? Is there perfect competition in America? Is there a perfect competition in Russia? Is the perfect competition in China or in India? Where is it? For which time? When was there perfect time? Or tomorrow will there be perfect competition? When there is no perfect competition, why do you teach all these topics which are not real in the world? What is the use of these topics? What is the use of these topics? Why are you burdening with unnecessary topics? A professor was asked this question. The professor was at a receiving end. He said, okay, I will try to answer your question with the help of a story, because he said children like stories. So he said, tell a story. The story is like this. It is not so. It is actually used to happen. There was a train which used to come to Nampally station, which we call nowadays Hyderabad. But when we were young, we used to call it as a Nampally station. Every day it is scheduled to come at 8 o'clock in the morning from the nearby district.
సార్ వాయిస్ వినపడట్లేదు సార్. హలో.
It was also not uncommon that train is coming in the night also. It's not uncommon. And so the passengers were mentally prepared for it. The train will be late. So every day it was coming on its own. It will end pleasure. So the passengers used to carry sufficient food items with them, because they said, we don't know when we will reach our Hyderabad. So they used to carry. They were not bothered, get panicked that, oh, it is late by someone, nothing. They were very calm, peaceful. Whenever a train stopped in some intermediary station for other train from the opposite side to cross, people used to get down to the platform, take bath on the platform, tap on the platform itself. They have to have food, because the train used to stop for 1 or 2 hours, because the train from the opposite side has to cross it. So it was a single line for that train coming from the opposite. This train used to be parked stationed there, so for a couple of hours. Then once the train, people used to get in. People, gents used to have exchange of their. They used to how about weather condition, their respective villages, prospects of crops and other things. Ladies used to do bhajans and other things, learn new songs from their co-passengers, and also they used to exchange some information. And many times even the marriage alliances used to be get settled in the train itself. So in short, the people never bothered that train is running. They were so very, very calm, and they used to come. Very calm. And whenever the train reached the Nampally station, people used to get down and go back without any complaint. People were mentally prepared for it. So they were saying, instead of spending time at home, they are spending time in the bogie compartment. Oh, there's nothing wrong. It doesn't make much difference. So one day, the train came at 8 o'clock. There was a tea vendor who saw the train coming at 8 o'clock. He took a garland and ran to the train driver. He ran to the train to garland him. The train driver was confused. Why do you want me to garland? The tea vendor said, I have been serving tea on this platform right from my childhood. Never I saw the train coming at 8 o'clock, and today it has come at 8 o'clock. So I am garlanding you. Garlanding you means the train driver quickly understood the mistake. Sorry, this train should have come yesterday at 8 o'clock, and it has come today at 8 o'clock. So it is late by 24 hours. You think it's right time. It's not right time. It has come late. The train which should have come at yesterday 8 o'clock, previous day, has come today at 8 o'clock. But therefore, the train is late by exactly by 24 hours. And there is a danger that people, when it is a highly imperfect thing, may confuse it as a perfect timing. because he doesn't know that it should have come yesterday. So the tea vendor was the thing. What I wanted to tell, the moral of the story is, if you want to know how late the train is, if you want to know what is the delay in the train, in the running of the train, you should have a timetable. Trains may not run on time. Somebody says when there is a timetable and trains are not running as per to the timetable, why should we have timetable? We should have timetable to know how much late the train is. That is the purpose. So the train should have come at 8 o'clock. It has come at 12 o'clock. So 4 hours late. It's like that. So why timetable should be there? To know how much late the train is running. So also the economist's answer is that true. In real world, there is no perfect competition. The markets are imperfect. But if you want to know how much imperfect the market is, if you want to know how much imperfection is there in the market, we should have perfect competition. Suppose they said, if there is a perfect market, the price of the item should have been only 25 rupees. But because of imperfection, the price in the market is 40 rupees. So now we can say, because of imperfection in the market, how much additional price is there? If there is a perfect market, price would have been only 25 rupees. Because of imperfection in the market, price has jumped to 40 rupees. So as a result, it may be sometimes consumer will suffer. Now price is more than what it should have been. The consumers will suffer. How much loss is there in consumer surplus? The consumer would have been benefited if the price was only 25 rupees. But now because they have to pay 40 rupees, consumers are suffering. Sometimes it may be other round. The perfect competition price would have been 25, but in real market, the price is only 15 rupees. Price is only 15 rupees. Now the producer will suffer. So because he would have got 25 rupees, but now he's getting only 15 rupees. So because of imperfection, sometimes it may be consumers who are suffering, sometimes it is producer may be suffering, but on the whole the society will be suffering. There is a welfare loss. In perfect competition, welfare loss, there will be no welfare loss. Both consumers will be happy, both consumers as well as suppliers will be happy. There will be maximum social welfare. Whereas in imperfect market, consumers may be suffering, sometimes it may be producer may be suffering, sometimes both may be suffering, we don't know. But on the whole, there will be suffering, there is a loss in the total welfare derived by the society. So, because of imperfection, how much loss is there in the welfare of the society can be measured. So we know that there is no perfect competition in the real world, but we require this concept of real world to come to know what is the extent of imperfection in the actual market. For that it is useful. The perfect competition is not taught saying that in every country, in every market there is a perfect competition is there. No. It is only an ideal state. So that we can compare today's market, today's actual market with the ideal state and see how much difference is there. So what is the extent of imperfection? Now, if there is government is intervening and taking our market nearer to the perfection, it's a good sign. So we are moving towards the perfect competition condition. So government should make attempt to see that we keep moving towards the perfection. We should move towards perfection. The extent of imperfection should be reduced. Instead, if the government intervention is not right, then maybe the extent of imperfection in the market may keep on increasing. So the government intervention instead of helping the people, may be harming the people. So government must, whenever it is intervening, it should see that the extent of because of its intervention, the actual market should move towards perfect market, not that it should move away from perfect market. The extent of imperfection must get reduced, otherwise as government intervention. Then government intervention is welcome. If government, because of government intervention, if there is more imperfection, then government intervention is not worth. So government must see that whenever it is intervening, whether because of its intervention, are we moving towards perfect competition or moving away from the perfect competition? This is the purpose of teaching perfect competition to the students of economics. Not to say that in real world and in all countries at all time there is a perfect competition. It is only to match, only to compare, for comparison and to know what is the extent of imperfection. Like that, if there is a timetable, not the timetable is there means railway timetable is there, doesn't mean that all trains will go according to the timetable. Many trains may be running late, but how much late they are running, to know that there must be timetable, no? Therefore, like that also, perfect competition, concept of perfect competition has been developed, not to say that it is in real world such thing exists, but to know the extent of imperfection in the real market, actual market, we require a concept called perfect competition. I think